Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews. You've got one here today, and I'm going to be reviewing J.R.R. Tolkien's legendary The Lord of the Rings, and this is going to be the Fellowship of the Ring. This book, I am sure, has been reviewed 1,072 times, at least. Go and check it out. I'm sure there's been plenty of times. I actually checked out or saw the movie whenever it came out, way back yonder when I was a young kid, first before I ever actually read the book, which literally has been over the last couple of weeks. The book itself, so I really thought about, what should I review this book? Because even going back and seeing other people's reviews of this particular book, even they started looking into various different things. So I thought, look, I'll just call out the things that I find interesting, the comparisons that I guess I can make to The Hobbit, which I also recently read not too long ago. And either A, this will be a bit of a reminder of maybe why it's such a good book, or why it was the start of a particular phase in the fantasy space, and what else we can call out. We'll see. But let me make it very clear. The Lord of the Rings, or the trilogy, it became a trilogy. I believe J.R.R. Tolkien wanted to create it as one big fat book, and good grief, it would have been fat because this particular one, anyways, 535 pages, something like that, and that's the first of the 3 parts of the series. I'm going to make a comparison in relation to The Hobbit. So The Hobbit was J.R.R. Tolkien's kind of original story, all around the precursor to everything that's happening in this particular series. It was straightforward. It wasn't as in-depth as what we see in this particular book. It was meant to be a book for his kids, and you can tell that I called it out in that particular book review. It was made for not a wider audience. He didn't have to go into particular specifics. You name it, that had a more simplistic, straight to pick up storyline. It was very from the kind of hero's journey, quite direct in terms of everything that happened. Go check out that book review if you'd like to hear me talk more about the Hobbit. But The Lord of the Rings was an opportunity for J.R.R. Tolkien to expand and to go quite deep. Now, I made a little note here, and again, you've probably heard this a lot. It was interesting to me. He was a philologist. I had never heard of that word. Go look it up if you want. But he invented, it says Quenya, Quenva or Quenya, Sindarin, and other languages. So basically, simplify it down. He created all these languages and these worlds basically as a full imagination. I'll get to the point as to why, and kind of crafted it all. And from his own sort of notes and messages around this, from that spawned the creation of these books, almost to the point of all this. Imagine the real world. If you've got the real world, you could go and look at whatever particular thread, be it like a detail of Juan's life or Karen's life or someone else's life, and you could pull out, I'm sure, some sort of story. Some might be interesting, some might be not, but it's in a similar thread that he was looking at it for this particular book, in that he didn't initiate it with a book in mind or the series in mind or the whole flow of what it might have been. I'm sure he probably had a little bit of that, but he focused in on, building his language, building his worlds, building like a, not digital, but a full comparison of this huge fantasy world, and from then spawned everything else. Now, if you had told me this, if you've not read this book, maybe if you only watched the movies, you kind of understand what it means in terms of the detail or the rigor that J.R.R. Tolkien put in the details of it. So, but there's a difference between Peter Jackson's movie and the book, because when you read the book, and again, I can only compare it to The Hobbit as a direct comparison. Oh man, is there detail? Oh, you're gonna find some detail. So I'll be realistic. Probably for the first 300 odd pages, I was reading everything. Can I tell you right now, hand to heart, that I'm gonna be someone who would want to like detail down, like figure out the exact lore of all the backstories, all the languages and everything else? No, I'm not gonna do it. Will I tell you also, even though someone might comment on this and say, boo, or they're sad when this happens, I generally skipped the poems slash the singing along that happened in the particular book. I just didn't read it as much. I know some people out there like really love that. I'm in two minds. Sometimes I do like it. Sometimes I just skip it through. But going back to the 300 pages, roughly at about 300 pages, there was just so many details that I went, for me reading this book, I really want to read it for the storyline, that I know kind of knows what happens because of watching the movies. But I kind of want to get through this book, right? It's 500 pages. I don't have hours and hours per day to read it. That's just not what I have. So I want to get through this to go to other books as well. It meant that I started skipping or reading at a bit more of a faster pace on, okay, let's just get through past this bit because I don't really need to know this little detail that's going on, etc. So there was aspects of the book that I at least felt, for me, I was like, "Man, this is too detailed." Like, I don't need to know what's going on in the north side of the world and that, them 472 years ago, such and such happened. But I think inversely, it is why a lot of people love this book because it just feels so not just thorough, you know, conversely, I've been reading like a youth fiction book, and that's in comparison nothing, very surface level. But there's not just thorough. I would say this is to the point of kind of like I said, you could go and take a completely different path in this book, or he could have taken a different path in writing it, and you could have explored a whole different world and opportunities and storylines, or in another sense, you could rewrite this book or the series in completely different viewpoints, and with the amount of lore and backstory, you could have done it very easily. The other one, and did note a lot of people commenting about this book, which I really enjoyed as well, was in comparison to maybe other books where they'll get to the action or the things that are happening. Tolkien does a really good job, and again, can't comment if he's doing it all over the place, but he does a really, really good job of demonstrating the passing time. So, when they're going from point A to B to C to D to X to all the way to the end of this particular first part of the trilogy, it, you do feel like, oh, it's taking them 7 days and it's arduous and they're tired, they're hungry, and then there's this thing that's coming up. It really made you feel like you're part of the journey, that Fellowship of the Ring moving along across. And it didn't feel boring. I can't quite pinpoint exactly why it didn't feel boring, because if I just said this to you right now, it kind of would be boring if you're just reading pages. It was like they walked for a day and it was rainy and they didn't see much. And the next day it was rainy again and they went through a swamp. Sorry, obviously me saying like that, boring, aka one-sided writer. But the way J.R.R. Tolkien put it together wasn't. It made it feel really realistic. I don't know if it was the combination of the interwoven thread of just the world at large that he kept calling out, mountain this and city that and this location and the river, etc. Maybe that aspect of it kept it almost like reading a historical recollection as opposed to a fantasy. And again, part of why people really love this book. The story, I mean, look, if you don't know the story, and again, there's almost one of the best-selling books of all time. It isn't, and even for fantasy, it's not the best-selling fantasy book, but part of it, it spawned a whole generation of fantasy. I think one of the comments people make is that today, you might reread this book and go, is it potentially a little bit trite? It's a little bit of what we've seen before. Well, of course, there's an old book, right? This was written in 1940 something. Is that correct? 1954, first published. So, it spawned a lot of things that you might now read in more current fantasy books or fantasy books that have been written at near term to today and go on. It's probably where it spawned a lot of the ideas from. But even then, very quickly, Fellowship of the Ring, it was basically a point of Frodo, which is I'll just call it Frodo taking the ring from Bilbo. Bilbo basically goes, "See you later, guys. Bye-bye from the Shire. I've had enough of you guys." Frodo gets the ring, passed down, waits a couple of years. Gandalf doesn't rock up. He goes with his little band of merry friends to go try and destroy the ring, which is something that they talk at the very beginning. And it is just a journey of going to various places, to Rivendell, to go and finding the elves, to then going from that point to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. You find all sorts of interesting characters. They stumble upon Striker, aka forget his name now. Damn. No, not Legolas. That's the other one. Again, lots of people. And that's one of the things. The amount of names that pop up in this particular book and the places, I can't really recall all of them. I'm not as maybe a aficionado in relation to that in terms of the lore, the history, but you better believe there's going to be either people commenting on this or who've done reviews on this who are deep into the lore for Tolkien and everything that's created. And I guess that's a positive to what level of creation and dedication he brought to, again, not just a book, but building a world that then spawned the book and literally could keep on spawning books forevermore. And I know that there's been a whole host of books beyond, these series. There's been plenty more that have been spawned from that, from, again, the same history, the same lore. I really enjoyed it. Did I enjoy it as much as The Hobbit? No. Probably just goes more to show of, who I am as a bit of a book reader. I like it to be punchier and more action driven. This book is a marathon, if you'd like, in terms of a book reading. Given that it's a 3-part series, it's very much a marathon. There's people out there who absolutely love that. I probably strike more towards not absolute love in that sense, but I do enjoy a good read, and I will, and I did in this, and I'm sure I'll do it for the other 2 parts, kind of skip ahead a little bit just to kind of find, okay, I just wanna keep chewing on the morsel of goodness that is the main storyline, and not maybe pick and find and understand all of the various details around, how this elvish race exists or lives, or how they were for the last 1,000 years, something like that. It's just not where I am in time and place in my life. The other note that I actually put was, the other similar in depth that I haven't read, but Karen has done a book review on, is Dune by Frank Herbert. So in terms of the lore and everything else, so again, there's been just so many books that have been spawned off the back of this sort of idea and fantasy explosion, if you will. Again, man, lots of dedication to do that. 7 out of 10 from me. Great book. If you haven't already read it or watched the movies, wow, you probably should, just to understand what it is that Tolkien produced. Read The Hobbit, go and read this, read the rest of the trilogies. Yes, it will take a while. If you're already like a fantasy nerd or enjoy it, either you've already read it or it's on your list already. If you're not, kind of like me, I would recommend have a read. You'll see for a lot of parts the greatness of what people talk about from Tolkien's writing, and why it deservedly is one of the top books and series of all time. I will leave it there. Me and more online. I hope you've been well wherever you are in the world. If you got any comments, if you want to subscribe, if you want to share this with someone else, if you want to send a boostergram, all those things are available. You can support us in many ways. Leave the comments. Let me know. I'm going to be here. And until next time, Immortalized, I'll leave it there. One out.